It's absolutely freezing today, but Glasgow's looking pretty scenic. I've now moved out of the flat I've previously lived in, so today's workshop video is going to be a little change of scenery. I'm not filming at the top of this hill though. I'd love to film indoors, but this garden will have to do. The cute thief wishes it was indoors too. He's frozen solid. Despite the risk of freezing solid, it's a nice change to be working outside with the birds and squirrels. You may remember I experimented with a suspension fork on my previous Hex. I like the idea of making my bike resemble a small mountain bike rather than looking like a super specialised bit of trials equipment. It makes it look more relatable that way. The only thing with that experiment was the RockShox Pike DJ fork was 100mm travel. I really don't need 100mm of travel, something much shorter will give me the look I'm after. There is a fork I have wanted to try for a while now, but couldn't justify the cost. But one came up on eBay at a price that was worth a punt, so they've arrived and I'm going to fit it. Don't get me wrong, rigid is king for 99% of trials riding. It's lighter, stiffer and feels more precise. They're also stronger and have a lot less maintenance. I've never actually broken a Hex fork. But there are some moves where having a little bit of suspension would be nice. Plus, you know I love bike experiments. So, what is the fork I got? It's a Fox 32 Float AX Performance Elite Fit 4 fork. Say that fast 5 times. If you've never heard of this fork, then it's a Fox Stepcast XE model that they've lowered the travel and advertised as a gravel bike fork. So how much travel do they have? A whopping 40mm. Okay, well maybe it's not the most impressive specimen, but it does tick a few boxes for me. Firstly, a tapered steerer, and a non-boost hub spacing with 15mm axle. This means it'll fit my frame and wheel. It's also quite adjustable, which is always handy. And I can pump it up pretty firm if needed. One negative, however, is the step in the leg, which limits it to a maximum rotor size of 180mm, no 203s like I normally use. But the main bonus is the axle to crown length. Let's take my rigid fork off and compare. Firstly, how much extra will I be lifting? Going from just over a kilo to 1.4. 400 grams seems like a lot, but for suspension, that's worryingly light. So, how long are they? Not very. The Hex fork is 420mm axle to crown. The Fox is 435mm. 15mm will raise the bottom bracket, but not drastically. Certainly nowhere near as much as the Pike fork did. Let's stick it on and see what happens. Not so fast there, Mr. Clarkson. These steerer tubes don't match. But they soon will. I'm dreaming of the day I can get my own workshop and can get some decent tools. Until then, this £5 Amazon saw will have to do. That'll do, pig. Getting rid of the sharp edges, Sand Pilgrim style. Now we're ready to fit. But wait a minute, how am I going to run a hose through the steerer and tighten the headset? The Inspired fork has an internally threaded steerer and matching top cap, which makes it easy. This fork doesn't, plus I cut off the part with the star nut. Well, I'm going to use this. It's a headlock system from Inspired, designed for their non-threaded forks to allow you to tighten the headset and still run a hose through it. It's essentially a long bolt that clamps the top and bottom of the fork and pulls it all down nice and tight. It's meant for Inspired's own forks, but fits perfectly on this Fox steerer. Now we can fit it. I'm keeping the same number of headset spacers as my rigid fork. If it feels too high, I'll just remove them. Spent ages fettling this headlock as I didn't have the correct length bolts, even lost some blood, only to realise I should have threaded the brake hose up before fitting it. Classic. Once it was removed, it made threading the hose a million times easier. And fitting the headlock was a lot easier the second time round. Before I fit the wheel, I need to swap the rotor. Shame, as this one matches so well. I got a used SRAM one from an old friend. Here's hoping it's straight. Thanks, Mike. Thike. The Inspired fork had a plus 20 disc mount, which meant I used a standard 180mm adapter for my 200mm rotor, so I should be able to use the same adapter on this fork with a smaller 180mm rotor. However, this definitely is not fitting. No panic though, it was just upside down. The rotor has a slight bend, but acceptable for now, as I don't have anything to straighten it with. I'll fix it later. Now I need to figure out what to do with this hose. I reckon this will do the job. Job's a good 'un. Check that out, I think they suit the hex super well. I'm curious to see how 40mm travel feels like. Here's hoping they're progressive enough not to bottom out easily. I also hope they're strong enough. I'd still like to do hooks, but I honestly don't know how they'll hold up with all the forces. They feel a little soft, and I don't have a shock pump with me, so I'll just try locking them out for now. You know what? They feel pretty good. I'm actually so stoked on how they look and feel. I'll pump them up when I can and give them some punishment. But that'll have to wait. I need a hot chocolate and a blanket. Let me know what you think, and if you liked this then please consider subbing and maybe even joining me on Patreon. But that's all for now. I'll see you next time. Bye! And speaking of Patreon, here are my patrons now. It's no exaggeration when I say that these videos wouldn't be possible without all these people. My shows have dried up, my main source of income, so yeah, these guys are getting me through lockdown and getting me making videos to entertain you guys. So if you fancy joining these names here, like we've got Russell Lee, Stan Smith, Jack Mersey, all these cool guys. If you want to be part of this list, then yeah, join up my Patreon. Thanks guys, see ya.